There has been a problem bugging me since I discovered it. This is the 2011 Game of the Year, The Elder Scrolls V: Skyrim, the follow-up to the massively successful The Elder Scrolls IV: Oblivion. Skyrim is an incredible game, still played and loved today thanks to mods. I mean, you could probably go on YouTube and find a ton of people still playing this game. But this masterpiece has a huge problem. Have you ever actually stopped and looked around for birds in Skyrim? Have you seen any? I mean, besides these dudes who just wander around town pecking at the ground like they own the place. I'm talking about real birds, hawks, eagles, cardinals, owls, woodpeckers, the kind of birds you'd expect in a place with forests, rivers, mountains, you know, like Skyrim. Think about it. Have you seen any in this game? Because my wife, a well-published doctor in animal behavior and ornithology, was very concerned. We had just finished researching birds in the Zelda series and thought, hey, let's do Skyrim next. But we couldn't find any. And so what happened to them? Where did they go? Did they just vanish? Were they hunted? Did Bethesda Game Studios forget birds existed? Skyrim is hailed as one of the greatest RPGs of our time with no birds. So we jumped right in and did some good old-fashioned video game research to investigate and find out what happened to the birds in Skyrim. Let's find out. We had 3 theories before jumping into the game for some deep investigation. Theory 1, the birds are there, but they're just really hard to spot due to the mountainous terrain and vegetation and because of the behavior of the player. 2, there are birds, but they are only domesticated or edible birds like, well, chickens. No birds of prey or songbirds. And theory number 3, the world simulates birds so well, in fact, that you think they're there, but in reality, they aren't at all. And boy, wouldn't you know it, guys, in a few hours, we had our answer. But, man, did those few hours turn into days of research. Being a scientist is hard, y'all. If you've ever seen the movie Shawshank Redemption, look, bear with me. I know this has nothing to do with video games. In Shawshank Redemption, there's a bit on how no one noticed the main character is wearing fancy shoes in prison. Why? Because no one looks down. Humans don't notice things they're used to. And so maybe in Skyrim, no one looks up. Trees are everywhere. But we stop paying attention after about 10 minutes, especially once we're dodging dragons and running from frost trolls. Or in my case, frost giants. So maybe the normal person never is going to look up for birds. Maybe birds are there and we're just not looking. At least, this was our theory, of course, until we hit Riverwood. Yeah, boom, right there after we walked through Riverwood, we found birds. Case closed. But wait, turns out that those birds are scripted to fly away as soon as you leave Riverwood. They're not part of the game's ecosystem. They don't land, nest, or respawn. I don't even think you can kill them. They're just visual dressing, like a painting of a bird. And that's all well and good, but it didn't solve our little riddle here. Not one bit. So we cataloged these guys and we moved on. We made our way across the river, over the valley to Whiterun. The entire time, we kept our eyes peeled for any signs of our feathery friends. And we did eventually come across them. Just not in the state that we had hoped for. That's right. If you go into any tavern in Skyrim, you may find a pheasant, but they're dead. Kinda awkward. But this does tell us that there has to be pheasants somewhere in Skyrim. I mean, I highly doubt they are importing dead pheasants. So that is like 4 birds here, including the pheasant, that we have found in the game so far. And at this point, we were actually feeling pretty good. And hey, while we're on topic, let's actually go over these 4 birds that we found. The first birds that we found obviously were the chickens in Riverwood. There appear to be several breeds of chicken here, so some may be kept for eggs and other for, well, the chicken wings, obviously. Next up, we saw red-winged blackbirds. These are very common in North America, and they're a songbird found in most wet grassland areas. Our third bird is some kind of hawk. The closest we could actually match this to was a red-shouldered hawk, a common large hawk in North America. And finally, in Whiterun, we found our dead ring-necked pheasants. These are actually common game birds being something popular for hunting and, well, eating. So, makes sense that you found one in a tavern. Now, you're probably asking, why is this all relevant? Because only 2 of these birds that we just discussed are the kind that you would find to hunt and eat, chickens and pheasants. Meaning our second theory about the whole Skyrim has domesticated birds you would eat theory is completely out of the door. Clearly, Skyrim has birds that are birds of prey or songbirds. We continued our journey, hopeful that we could find more birds. I wanted so badly at this point to find birds in the wild. And this is when we stumbled upon something incredibly bizarre. Something that I would describe as one of the weirdest things I've ever encountered in a video game. As you approach certain trees in Skyrim, you will hear bird sounds or bird song. But if you look around, you cannot see birds at all. Even in this empty field, you can clearly hear a bird here, but there is not one to be seen. They are phantoms. We were completely taken back by this discovery. Skyrim is coded to play bird sounds when you are near specific areas of the game, and those areas always, 100% of the time, involved trees. But there is something super interesting we found. If you walk to a new area with trees and you hear birds, and then let's say you walk through that area and go on your merry little adventure, but then hours later you come trotting back to the area with the tree that you first were at, well, you will hear the exact same birds you did from before. This is actually quite incredible because this is proof that Bethesda coded the game to play specific bird song in specific areas, which is pretty freaking dope. But after this crazy revelation, we searched the game for any clues of birds nesting in these areas. Oh, well, what do we have here? Yeah, so we actually found bird nests here in the forest around Falkreath. And it took us a while, but out of the corner of my eye, I caught one. But strangely, they were on the ground? I do not know many birds actually put their nests on the grounds like this, so I had to ask my wife, who again is a doctor in ornithology, if this was actually a thing. And her response? Yes. But they hide their nests better than this. Likely though, these in the game are actually either thrush or wobbler eggs, which have a few species that nest on the ground. So again, after the musical birdsong discovery and the nested eggs here, props to Bethesda for making a good simulation of birds without, well, actually having any. Boy, this mystery is getting weirder by the moment. First, we got birds that look like this. Now we have nests on the ground in forests. And all of this without any birds around at all. And it was this point we began to realize there aren't more than 4 birds in Skyrim. There were a ton of birdsong in the soundtrack. And luckily for us, the game allows us to actually isolate just the bird sounds. We simply turned off the music and left on ambient sound, and boom, we could hear only birds. But you may be wondering, what birds are singing here? Well, for that, Mama Goron listened to the bird song and was able to easily identify each bird. From the bird song, she identified a blue jay, a song sparrow, the American robin, the northern cardinal, the black-caped chickadee, and ovenbird. Didn't know that was actually a thing. The pileated woodpecker along with its pecking, a tufted titmouse, the Carolina wren, the wood thrush, and a chipping sparrow. But even after all this research, the mystery got even weirder because we discovered that Elder Scrolls Online, which has the region of Skyrim in it, has birds. It has like a lot of birds. Now, I know the Elder Scrolls Online released after Skyrim did, but a ton of games from around when Skyrim released had tons of birds in them. I mean, look at Zelda. They have so many birds in the Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, and many others. But Skyrim could only afford to put in 4 in their game, even though it's a huge simulated environment. Something just didn't add up for us, and that's when it hit us. The Elder Scrolls Online, in its lore, takes place before the events of Skyrim, meaning the game Skyrim is actually in the future after Elder Scrolls Online, roughly 1,000 years, which is a significant amount of time. So, what happened to the birds in Skyrim? Something cataclysmic must have taken place in order for the birds in Skyrim to be completely wiped out, or, more likely but less dramatic, they left. Yeah, so a lot of people, including myself at times, forget birds migrate. And Falkreath, being the place where we discover the nests on the ground, is one of the southernmost points in Skyrim, meaning it's the warmest. The further north you go, the less you actually hear birdsong. So it actually makes sense that birds have migrated away from Skyrim to an area where it's more warm. But remember how we talked about the birdsong was coded to stay in specific areas with trees, and they were not actually random birdsong, it was specific birds? Well, the majority of those birds, the ones that we listed before, can actually all be found around Bethesda, Maryland. Yeah, Bethesda, Maryland, where Bethesda Studios is located, where they developed Skyrim. And guess what? Those birds, many of them do not migrate south for winter. Chickadees, cardinals, robins, blue jays, and more all stick around for winter. Therefore, this means the birds in Skyrim are actually unlikely to migrate. And so that leaves us with only one possibility. Something wiped out the bird population. Maybe a cataclysm that occurred between Elder Scrolls Online and 1,000 years to Elder Scrolls Skyrim. What could possibly have happened to the population of birds so severe that suddenly they no longer exist or become ghost birds in the area of Falkreath? Ghost birds. Wow, this video is weird, man. Anyway, let me know down in the comments below, what do you think happened to the birds in Skyrim to make them leave? My name is Papa Goron. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Where have you been? Been searching all along. Confusing twilight on and on without a clue.
Caw-caw! 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 Caw! Nope, that didn't work at all.
I'm a shapeshifter at post masquerade. I am both face and mind, all free for you to draw. I'm a shapeshifter. What else should I be? Please don't take off my mask, revealing dark.